It's the SKOR North Twins Show. Baseball.
All right, SKOR North Twins Show. Mackie, Judd, Dex here for a full edition. Did a quick little extra innings episode going into Sunday Night Baseball last night. Some positives coming into this next week of games. There is some things to talk about that could be positive. Royce Lewis on his way back. Jonah Bride, thank you for your service. Sounds like he's been designated for assignment. He will
got his little Sunday Night Baseball FaceTime last night before he left. It's great.
Yeah, first Sunday Night Baseball game in 5 years. We had Carlos Correa mic'd up. Scooble just on fire, man. Jeez, I thought we were going to watch a perfect game. I'll be honest. When he was cruising, I was like, we're going to watch a no-no at the very least. That was my first thought.
That was a fun game to watch, though, man. It's fun to watch a guy shove like that.
He deals. And he also just, there's something about, he's got an aura to him, you know? He just, like, he knows he's the best pitcher in the league. He kind of taunts you a little bit when he strikes you out, but not in a way that you would retaliate. You know, he's an interesting cat.
And he's chunky.
And he's got some chunk to him.
He's got some chunk to him. That's an old school pitcher right there. He's got the chunk.
That's right.
Yeah, there's some Scherzer, like, I might kill you vibes from him when he's on the mound. Not as like point blank from Max, but like Scooble, there is some I'm better than you and good luck trying to hit my stuff. I do love that.
Yeah, just like
right,
Simeon Woods Richardson has.
Yeah, exactly totally. Like Sim. Totally the same type of dude. Oh my God.
Terrible.
State of the Twins here, so I'm going to add some extra categories or extra things because we have a month of June. Twins off today before resuming things against the Fish tomorrow for July, so I'll have some categories for the month of June too. So here's your overview of the Twins. They're 40-44. They have a negative 14 run differential on the season. They're fourth place in the AL Central. They're 12.5 games back in the Central. They're 3.5 games out of a wild card spot. On the season as a whole, from an offensive side, the Twins are 17th in runs scored, 16th in team OPS, 9th in runners in scoring position. Here is the ball breaker, though, in my opinion. In the month of June, in the last 30 days, the Twins' offense is actually 10th in runs scored, 9th in OPS. Their offense over June was an above-average offense. The issue was their team ERA of 5.96 in the month of June was by far the worst figure in baseball, and that led them to a 9-18 month with a negative 4 run differential. Some playoff odds updates. No idea how the sausage is made. Their playoff odds actually went up 1.5% according to Baseball Reference. Now it's 6.7% chance to make the playoffs.
Let's go. LFG.
And on Fangraphs, they have about a 25%. So Fangraphs still a little bit more optimistic on the Twins versus Baseball Reference. So some softies on the schedule coming up here before we close for the All-Star break. We are through the halfway point. So this season is more than halfway through now in 2025. Vibe check. Judd, do you have a vibe check here for us to start things off?
I sure do. The vibes are resigned to their fate. And by the way, you look at the next opponent, Miami, 37-45, 11 games back. The Fish are reeling, -74 in run differential. Woohoo! Last 10 games, 8-2. They've won 7 straight.
They haven't lost in a week.
They've won 7 consecutive games. I feel like I just don't see, and I know that they are technically very much in a jumbled wild card race. And by the way, a league that is looking worse and worse, I think, by the day. So they're still involved in that race, but I feel like their fate is pretty much sealed unless there's something around the corner that I don't see coming, especially from a pitching perspective. We could certainly talk about the fact that Bailey Ober is almost unstartable right now, and Pablo Lopez might come back in September, but if he does, we have no idea how quickly he's going to get back into his groove. And that is a big if, because he is coming off an injury that it would not be shocking if there was a setback there. So unfortunately, I feel like the Twins vibes are resigned to their fate.
Yeah. But I would kind of take it in a different direction and say Twins vibes were very quickly exterminated over the last couple days of the weekend here, because they've done this, you've got to give this team a little bit of credit and respect for. It has felt like whenever they've been cooked, one time in particular, and they rattle off 13 straight wins, and you see some of the dudes on this roster, like there's talent still here, and there's a couple guys coming back from injury still. So I wanted to give a little leeway when they fell 5 games under 500, and then they salvaged the last 2 games at home against Seattle, and then they go out they had like 3 really good pitching performances in a row, and it leads to 3 straight wins. And I wanted to give room for, okay, here I'm not expecting 13 straight wins again, but let's see if this team can kind of level out and pick up some more wins. And they should win 2 or 3 against Miami, even though Miami hasn't lost in a week. Like if you aspire to be a playoff team, like these are some important games before you play Tampa and the Cubs for a week at Target Field. But Detroit just comes in on Saturday and Sunday and reminds you why there is such a gap between where the Tigers are at in 2025 and the Twins. So vibes, whatever vibe you felt after that Friday night win against Detroit was exterminated over the 48-hour weekend, culminating with Scooble's 10th victory of the season, Sunday Night Baseball.
Yeah, vibes for me are vanilla. It's just a vanilla team. You know, they at this point, I think it's very difficult to see them going on an absurd run again. Royce Lewis coming back, which is great. It looked like Royce was figuring things out before pulling the hamstring again against Houston a few weeks ago. Has kind of come back maybe even a little quicker than anticipated. So that's good. You're swapping in Royce Lewis for Jonah Bride, who is basically unplayable unless he was pitching. Even then, that was suspect as well. Vibes for me are just vanilla. I don't see them rattling off the surge that they were on in May. I think this is just an okay to average team. And with their pitching at where it is, I don't see how they can overcome this overnight. So vibes for me are just very, very vanilla.
Also, in terms of just another angle on the vibes here, you had I think the announced attendance was like 41,000 last night. So you got Comerica Park is bumping. This team is back. Fans were pissed at that organization for a number of years because it was perceived that they weren't spending enough. I mean, sound familiar? They were kind of toiling.
They were behind the times too.
Yeah, all these things. But you get the right number 1 starting pitcher, and you get some young guys in your lineup that start to click. Javier Baez, who's batting 9th, but like having this resurgent season offensively, you get some ingredients the right way, and boom, 41,000 people show up to create that vibe inside the stadium for Sunday Night Baseball. And it's just the Twins feel so far away from what the Tigers were last night on the field and with the fan base. It's kind of hard to. I mean, you have to look back years. The last time, besides an opening day, and a playoff game, when's the last time 41,000 people showed up to a Twins game on June 30th?
Oh, God.
So credit to the Tigers for what they're doing here.
Yep.
Least favorite thing, I guess. Let's continue down the Bailey Ober conversation. I talked a little bit about it on Extra Innings yesterday, but Bailey Ober, man, to Judd's point, this is bad. You can't start him again. But at the same time, like the reinforcements are not there. In the month of June, 5 starts, gave up 14 home runs in those 5 starts in the month of June. Opponents hit 309 against him. An ERA of exactly 9, 30 innings pitched. 30 earned runs, which is nuts. This was a guy who was he could get some swing and miss. He actually averaged like 9 strikeouts per 9 the last few seasons. A very control-heavy pitcher, doesn't walk a lot of dudes. And when you're like that, sometimes you can give up some home runs, but now the home run ball has just absolutely ballooned for him. He went from being one of the most underappreciated and underrated starters in the American League for a 3-year run from 2022 through last year to now dealing with maybe a hip injury, dealing with maybe a knee injury. The velocity was down coming into spring training. I did talk to someone about that last homestand, and they were kind of puzzled because he followed his offseason routine. It wasn't like he came in necessarily injured, but when a guy who's I think he turns 30 actually next week, Bailey does. But when a guy comes in all of a sudden dipping in velocity like that, it is a little perplexing. Yeah. And now you're seeing what was supposed to be, a really good middle of the rotation starter for you has now become unpitchable basically in the month of June.
I'm not buying that something's not really wrong. Like there's something here. Like I don't think that you have this complete of collapse because there's been an adjustment. Yes, I could see, some bad starts, but I mean that was brutal. And he's been the thing too is he had a decent May, but he's sort of been trending to this as far as the discussion on velocity and things like that. So I think something's wrong here, and I don't know if it's his release point because of the hip problem, which it's weird because the first time that Bailey mentioned that, and you guys went and talked to Rocco Baldelli about it, Rocco's like, oh, yeah, but he could pitch with that. He was very sort of dismissive, it looked like, at least in the quotes. Something's off here, though, and I am shocked that at some point in June, they didn't fulfill my write that down prediction and skip a start. Like, something's off here.
I agree. Like, I'm trying to be empathetic because it's like I think when he's right, he's a really good starting pitcher, and it feels like it's not age, like it feels like something's off physically, and also he's not a big velo guy to begin with. So when you in today's baseball, when your fastball average is like 90 to 92, you're sitting kind of 90, 91, 92 on a regular basis, even a mile per hour or two dip is going to be. It's not like when you're throwing 97, and now you're only throwing 95, and okay, like that's still enough to catch someone on their heels and blow them away. So if there's a dip in velo, and if his movement isn't quite as crisp, and also he is primarily a fly ball pitcher, so little things that are a little off. It's not like, okay, that ground ball was hit a little harder, but you're still getting ground balls. It's like, oh, he's a fly ball pitcher. By the way, his ground ball rate, which was already among the lowest among all starters going into the season at 33%, is down to 28%. So more fly balls, less velo, and it all just adds up to more home runs and more trouble. So they probably do need to IR him or IL him. But to Dex's point, like, it's not like there's three dudes ready to rock and roll at St. Paul right now. And actually, a segue into my least favorite thing. I've been very hard on this guy for years, and the Twins for continuing the experiment. But then I apologized, I think, like a month ago. But now we're back to the old Chris Paddock, his last handful of starts, 8 earned runs in 4 innings, 4 earned runs in 5, 4 in 5, and then the game yesterday, I mean, you're facing Skubal, so it's like, it's obviously you're not going to outduel him, but 4 2/3, couple of home runs allowed. So we're kind of back. By the way, Chris Paddock on the season, so he had that nice run, but then he had the really bad 2 or 3 starts at the beginning, and he's been really bad the last month, and it all evens out to an ERA just under 5, and his fielding independent pitching, which is essentially your expected ERA, is the second worst of his 7-year career, behind only 2020 in San Diego. So, like, I think we saw the best, like, not that he's not going to have some good starts, but I think what you saw for that month and a half or 2-month stretch, if you thought, oh, they've tapped into, like, finally the version that existed 6 years ago in San Diego, that guy's gone away now too. So you lose that luxury without Pablo and without the Bailey Ober that we've come to know. It's a really tough situation for the starting staff right now. For
the record, I believe I did not apologize, so I'm very happy that I did not.
I know, it's my mistake. Yeah. Peer pressure.
Regression, man. It's almost always going to happen.
Regression hits hard. Yeah.
The solutions for Bailey right now are either Travis Adams, who is kind of been converted from a starter to like a swingman pseudo opener with St. Paul. He came up 3 weeks ago, never pitched in a game with the Twins. He's like their 21st prospect. He's been solid this year. They also signed Jose Orena, who has bounced around. He's pitched for like 4 teams this season, like in the big leagues. He's pitched for the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. Those are two guys that they could potentially call up to take the spot. I believe Andrew Morris is still was placed on the injured list recently. That'd be like your best pitching prospect. That's a call away, but he's now hurt. So those are the options, unless there's another like random DFA trade or something like that. But I don't know how you can afford to have Bailey Ober make the next start. I'd be pretty surprised at this point if he makes that next start.
Yeah, that's my thought too. Is it's not like I understand that the options suck. It's not that. It's that I just don't understand. Like, something is wrong here.
Yeah.
And it's more important if this guy is going to have a successful career, which, by the way, he was. It's more important to find that than to just say, well, throw up your hands. We have to start him. Like at some point in time here, it just feels like we're not addressing an elephant in the room. I don't know exactly what that is. I do know that June though was as bad as it gets.
Yep.
Yeah. I have another least favorite thing real quick since we're getting some stuff off our chest here. And it kind of fits with the overall theme of the underachievement of this team. On Saturday, you had Matt Wallner batting 8th in this lineup. That's not supposed to happen. And I'm not saying it's the wrong decision, but the fact that Matt Wallner was supposed to be maybe batting leadoff for the chunks of the season, but for sure like one of your top 4 hitters in this lineup. And the fact that we're sitting here at the halfway point, essentially, and he has been relegated to the 8th spot in the lineup is, I would say, a microcosm of why you're several games below 500.
Yeah, absolutely. Favorite things. So there is actually, I think, some level of optimism here. There are some bright spots, I should say, not optimism. There's some bright spots on this current team. Phil just brought up Matt Wallner not living up to potential. I do think we're seeing Brooks Lee kind of step into his own and finally figuring things out as a major league hitter. Had a great month of June. He has really good bat-to-ball skills, and as much as this offense at times has sputtered or dealt with inconsistencies from dudes like Matt Wallner or Carlos Correa, him and Byron Buxton, Brooks Lee and Buxton, that is, in the month of June, have been incredible for them. Obviously, Bucks had even a better month than Brooks Lee, but if you're trying to figure out who are our cornerstones, like what guys do we want to build around going forward, like into 2026 and beyond. And by the way, the prospect pool, Walker Jenkins is figuring things. He's finally healthy, had his first big double-A home run. Kalen Culpepper just was announced to play in the Futures game at the All-Star break here in a couple weeks, so that's encouraging. Which guys do you kind of want to build around? Because if you're indeed tracking towards selling, which, let's be honest, I think that's where this team is headed, who are the pieces outside of like the rentals, right? Like the Baders and the Castros and the Paddocks. Those guys are rentals. You can ship them off, maybe get something for them. But which guys are maybe not untouchable, but guys that you can say, these are our building blocks. All right, so this year didn't go well. What can we do in 2026 and beyond? In my opinion, Brooks Lee has firmly entered that conversation as guys that we can build around and should be here for the long haul after 2025.
Yeah, he seems to be one of the few guys that also now, and it's weird because a weekend ago against the Brewers, I mean, he stood at home plate when the ball got past the catcher. He had the one game, I think it was on Sunday, where he booted like 3 balls. And by the way, on Friday came back and made some incredible plays at third base. So I think there is a resilience there I like. I also think that aside from the one game at third base against Milwaukee, I also think I like him as your long-term third baseman. He just makes a lot of plays there, and he's got a good glove. And Royce was improved there, but I don't know that Brooks Lee is not the better third baseman. But yes, it's weird because this team has had 2 just awful months, and yet there are some individual things that are not easy, but you can be optimistic about, and Brooks Lee is definitely one right now. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's even defensively this year at third base. He's actually kind of not been a train wreck, but he's not lived up to where he should be. He's -4 defensive runs saved, but I think like when you look at him, you see a good third baseman in there. I'm not looking at 3 months of what you've seen from him defensively in 2025 as, oh, nope, can't play that position. Like, no, this dude definitely can be a really good defender. But the bat coming around finally after a disastrous rookie year last year, I think is the more encouraging thing.
Yeah. I actually have two things that are in my favorites, maybe even more. Despite where they're at and my like broad feeling about this team, there are some little things to drill down on. A shout out real quick to North American Banking Company. So North American Banking Company, based in Minnesota since 1998, 6 locations in the Twin Cities. And a few months ago, I had a terrible experience with a different bank, like kind of one of those last straw experiences. And all they needed to do to keep my business was put a human on the phone that knew what they were doing. I just needed a personal connection in that moment. And North American Banking Company, and getting to know them over the past like 7-8 months or so, they not only do they provide friendly, knowledgeable, like in-person communication, but they also value the safety and security of your accounts, cutting-edge online tools. Find out more how North American Banking Company can give you a better banking experience at nabankco.com/Mackey. That's nabankco.com/Mackey. Member FDIC, equal housing lender, Dex. Or
Yeah, and
Judd's
also-
with Stoke Barbecue.
Yeah,
I guess.
Stoked barbecue pellets, Judley.
4th of July is here, basically, right? And that means that we are in the heart, the very heart of one of the great seasons in the state, and that, of course, is barbecue season. And that is why you should turn to Stoke Barbecue Pellets, a company based and operated right here in our fine state. What am I talking about? I'm talking about 50-count fire starter buckets, 4-count fire starter bags, the barbecue caddy. If you are a grill master, the barbecue caddy is absolutely a must. Absolutely great. You can find Stoke products at Fratelloni's Hardware and Garden Stores. Also check out StokeBBQ.com to find their dealer locator, but start your search for Stoked in the heart of barbecue season at Fratelloni's Hardware and Garden Stores.
Two things on my favorite list. One, just a quick shout out again to Louis Varland, who after his scoreless inning on Friday night, lowered his ERA below 2 for the season. So he now has a 1.96 ERA in his first real full runway as a reliever here. He's one of the highest usage relievers in the entire league. Knock on wood here. He's only given up 3 home runs all season. That mean him giving up towering fly balls was an issue at times as a starter. But he's only given up 27 hits in 36 2/3 innings and only 1 earned run allowed since the beginning of May. So it's something that we were kind of pounding on the table for on this show for the last 2 years. And here he is sitting in the middle of your bullpen with a bunch of team control left. And so if you do decide to move on from a Duran and scoop up some chips at the trade deadline, I mean, Varland at this point, it's not a fluke. He's missing bats. He's keeping the ball in the ballpark, and he's a guy I think for the next at least couple of years. It's kind of volatile with relievers, but you can kind of plug him in as one of your 3 late inning guys long term here. So I'll pause there if you guys have any Louis Varland love you want to give out too.
He's been fantastic. He's been absolutely great. And I think everybody outside of perhaps the Varland family saw this. He has been everything we thought possible for him out of the bullpen has happened.
Yep.
And I would be shocked, and he plays an important role now, but I would be shocked in 2026 at this rate if he is not in an even more important role in that pen. I think he's got the stuff to close. He is, but I mean, this is everything that we saw as a starter, right? Because he'd get off to good starts and then it would fall apart. And we're all like, dude, you look like you belong in the pen. And sure enough, he's been lights out. And I think he is going to carve himself out now a really nice career in that role.
Mm-hmm. I was just looking the other day. I was like, how's our friend Jorge Alcala doing in Boston? And in 5 appearances, he's finished a couple games. He's faced 15 batters. Hasn't allowed a run yet.
Oh, man.
4 strikeouts. And I was not going to be surprised if this guy figured things out. Granted, he has not pitched with the lead, I think, once when he's come in the game for Boston. So they're using him in a lower leverage situation. And not surprising that he could maybe figure things out. But on Varland's case, to Phil's point, he's been incredible. And that's where I think that's why it's frustrating, because the offense, even in the month of June, we gave the stats, there were some bright spots there. Buck's on maybe his best tear of his career right now. Brooks Lee's been awesome. Even Correa has looked at times like he's at least being better at the plate. And they have guys in that bullpen that are pretty damn good. But when you are going 4 2/3 and you have an 8-run, 6-run crooked number spot in the 3rd inning and your game is basically doomed, pretty hard to win games. So that's where the starting pitching is at. Judd, do you have a favorite thing?
I have one more. I want to throw one more out.
Oh, yeah, one more.
Phil's doing multiple ones.
I'm doing multiple here because I'm positive Phil is in the house on a Monday here. Byron Buxton is on pace for one of the 10-ish best seasons in Twins history. If you go back and look at Twins history, how many guys, just from a back of the baseball card number standpoint, so he's got 15 stolen bases, not been caught stealing yet. They're greenlighting him more than they have in years. If he stays healthy, which is the big if for a decade of his existence in the big leagues, he is pacing for 35 or 40 home runs and 30 stolen bases with an OPS right now over 900 and still giving you excellent defense and range in center field. So just in terms of like how many guys have done the 35 or 40 homer thing with that many steals, that does not happen in Twins history. But from a wins above replacement standpoint, he's on pace for a 7 WAR season right now, which would put him 10th or so all time for single season position player performances. And the other guys on that list, there's a couple guys who've appeared multiple times, but it's Rod Carew like 3 or 4 times. It's Chuck Knobloch 1996, Joe Mauer 2009, Kirby Puckett a couple of times, Tony Oliva 1970, and then there's a Bob Allison and Zola Versailles appearance from 1963 and 1965. That is, if he stays healthy and keeps performing like this, it is legitimately one of the great seasons in the history of Twins baseball.
If the Twins were not so wildly inconsistent, and I'm not saying he would win this, but Byron Buxton would be in the MVP discussion right now.
He would be.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
He's not, I don't feel like, but he would be.
Yep. Instead, it reminds you a little bit different because Chuck Knobloch flirted with a batting title in 1996. He batted 341, but Chuck Knobloch's best season came in 1996 on a team that was terrible. Yep. That their pitching was terrible.
Yep.
Their lineup was actually pretty darn good. Mm-hmm. He still got some MVP votes, but obviously like the Twins not being anywhere close to winning the division prevents that. But I think you're right, dude. If they were like in the hunt right now, if they were 5 or 6 games over 500, he would be in the mix for MVP votes for sure.
It's also impossible not to be happy for Buxton.
Mm-hmm.
Like it of all of the frustrating things, that dude playing like this, because to go back, a lot of the past is not his fault. He literally was hurt. He tried to play. Like this whole thing of he doesn't like to play was the stupidest thing of all time. The guy plays very hard. But yes, yeah, that's a great one. Let me give you my favorite thing because, gentlemen, it's related to history. Recent Twins history. This is my favorite thing. Derek Falvey. Let's go back to 2017. The summer of 2017, that team traded, if you guys recall, around the deadline for Jaime Garcia. Made one start in Oakland, and then Falvey said, you know what? I think it was a road trip. Twins weren't playing great. He said, we're bailing. We're out. We're out here. Molitor and the boys are like, what are you doing to us? Well, that team actually came back and made the wild card. But what I am alluding to that I think is important from Falvey's history is this. There is a case to be made that the Twins could stick around here and maybe get hot and maybe get a wild card spot. I don't know. I don't personally think so, but you certainly can't dismiss it when you're 3.5 games back. That being said, I think the summer of 2017 should be the precedent for making moves at the deadline, which is unless you have gotten so hot, it's unbelievable, and you are screaming up the standings. If you are 3.5 out at the deadline, I think that you should do what Falvey did in 17, which is Duran. I'm not saying the entire team is traded, but let me give you some.
You're saying you should buy misguidedly and then
sell
don't immediately?
Buy.
Is that
don't
what
buy,
you would do?
just sell. Don't buy, just sell. Duran tradable because I think you'd keep Jax. Castro could help a contender. Jack of all trades. He's not a great player, but he's very solid. But my point is, for those thinking, well, Falvey won't sell, the summer of 2017 tells a very different story. I do, yes. Don't buy.
But you're looking at this purely from a baseball ops standpoint. But there's an ownership level to this that, and they might have some different logic in that ownership group than maybe we do on these microphones.
Sure.
But if let's say you're Derek Falvey and you come to the conclusion from a baseball ops standpoint. So now you've got baseball ops Falvey. And maybe he's arguing with business operations Falvey over here, and you can see the conflict in one person having those jobs. It's very difficult.
Don't know.
And then there's the ownership trying to sell this team for $1.7 billion. So if you tell the fan base after this fan base has already kind of eroded over 2 years, we're pretty bad and we're about to be even worse in the second half of the season and maybe even beyond that in 2026 because we just traded an awesome closer. We traded a guy who was voted the Twins MVP a year ago
Not by
He
Declan,
was.
it
He was voted. But hey, all of the pundits and scribes who
Well.
cover that team the closest voted Willie Castro the MVP. And you're going to trade off these key pieces that are preventing it from being worse than it is in 2025.
Yep.
And you think attendance is kind of bad the first half of the season. What's it going to be like the second half while you're trying to keep the valuation of the franchise as high as possible?
Attendance will already, again, unless they get just red hot and ascend the standings at a rapid rate, I think by August 1st, attendance is going to be bad regardless. But here's the thing is, who has shown, so I love your point, but here's my question back. Who in that organization has shown that they will, from the Pohlad side, has shown that they will push back on a guy that they have now put in complete control of everything?
But this is a different, and maybe you're right, but like a year ago, it was not public at the trade deadline that they were going to, and also they were like firmly in the mix as a 90% playoff chance a year ago.
Yes.
Their chances now, one of the websites Declan just referenced was like below 7%, I want to say. So it's different because now publicly they're trying to sell the team, and also they're not nearly in the position that they were. So it's just like there's these forces that are kind of going against each other almost, where like baseball ops, you should sell. But ownership and business ops, I don't know, do we want to like make it seem like this thing is more competitive than it is? And maybe by the trade deadline, it will be more. Maybe they will be in wild card position by the trade deadline, which throws another variable into this. It's going to be really interesting the next month. All these forces.
That does. But I am hoping that they're not at this rate. Just accept your fate.
Maybe this is a longer episode, but in the ninth, so this is the 9th year Falvey has been in control of the Twins. There's only been 2 seasons where they positioned themselves as sellers at the deadline. Mm-hmm. It was 2018 when they sold Escobar, Presley, even like rentals like Zach Duke and Lance Lynn. They traded those guys. And then in 2021, they traded Nelson Cruz. They traded Barrios. They released Matt Shoemaker. I'm looking at the transaction log, the shoe. Totally forgot about the shoe. They have only done that twice. So like they've either been positioned as buyers or have tried to buy at the trade deadline in the majority of the tenures.
Kind of. They have in the 9 years, they have sold twice. They have bought once. They've remained neutral the other years.
Right.
That's what's crazy.
In 17, though, they bought and then they bailed and sold, and they still made the wild card. Mm-hmm. That's what I would use as my case. Hey, look, because I mean, Duran would bring you theoretically a tremendous return. Tremendous return.
Do you think so?
Yes.
At the deadline for
define tremendous.
I guess we have to define what tremendous would be. You'd get at least one top 10, potentially two top 10 prospects, I think, for him.
If you got 2 top 10 prospects, in this day and age, that's a huge return.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you should do that for sure.
So there you go.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Mm-hmm. We got Trevor Plouffe Tuesday tomorrow on the SKOR North Twins Show. Maybe bringing some positivity here. So he was enjoying himself in Minnesota. He was hanging out with the Maurer family all weekend, just hitting balls, just having fun with the kids. Good for him. Good for Coach Trev. Hey, hit the like button, subscribe button, though, too. Royce Lewis coming back. Any other extra innings episode will be on this feed. Twins beginning a 3-game series with the Fish tomorrow. Hit the like button and subscribe button here on the SKOR North Twins Show.